This is where it ends.
Snake stands on the precipice of the sewer outlet. Ocelot charges towards him, pulling the trigger of his revolver, but only one chamber is loaded, and he hasn't reached it yet. Snake launches himself backwards down the waterfall into the river below, arms spread wide in a messianic pose. From here, Snake descends into another world, one that stands between ours and the next. He awakens to find himself wading through burning mangroves, though it does not burn for long before the rain soon arrives to quench the flames. But does this rain represent relief or an oncoming storm? The rain brings with it the most mysterious figure of the game, but Snake is unperturbed by this spectral figure rising to hover above the swamp.
Are you one of the cobras?
Make no mistake. The dead are not silent. Now you will know the sorrow of those whose lives you have ended.
By coming so close to death, Snake has landed himself in the Sorrow's realm. Had he not, it is entirely possible that he would have remained beyond the Sorrow's reach forever. But why does the Sorrow want to reach him? The Sorrow is dead, what concern is he for the affairs of the living? Is he still loyal to the Cobras? And can we fairly describe what ensues as a boss battle? However we may describe it, it is one of the most unique and haunting experiences in video game history. Snake does not fight the Sorrow. Instead, the Sorrow forces him to confront his own guilty conscience. Snake wades through the mangroves facing the souls of every enemy he has ever killed, at least on this mission. Should the player not have killed anyone, all he will see are the Cobras, as even by merely driving down their stamina, Snake is indirectly responsible for their resultant deaths by bomb implant. The Sorrow does not directly attack, but he drives down Snake's health through startling spectral projections. Once Snake has supposedly died, it is now time for him to utilize the revive pill. Was it the Sorrow's intention that Snake joined him in the afterlife, or did he merely wish for Snake to understand the full consequences of taking lives?
Boss, you have to shoot me.
I can't.
Shoot me. You want to finish your mission, don't you? Then you'll have to shoot me. The spirit of the warrior will always be with you. Don't be sad. We'll meet again someday.
As Snake returns to consciousness beneath the water, he hears fragments of conversation from the Sorrow's past. Is this something the Sorrow has consciously chosen to share with Snake? If so, it is the last thing he does before Snake leaves his realm and returns to the land of the living. Snake regains consciousness and desperately scrambles to the surface for air. Climbing onto land, he finds himself in a beautiful refuge, safely enclosed from enemy view under a canopy of trees. The sun shines, the birds sing, and butterflies lazily circle the area. Snake radios the Major immediately. Zero is relieved to hear that Snake has survived. Snake asks for more intel on the Sorrow. Zero explains that the Sorrow was a medium with powers of ESP, extrasensory perception, but the Major confesses that he doesn't know as much about him as Sigint does. This is surprising considering Zero would have been a contemporary of the Sorrow. It is even possible that they would have worked together. Instead, we must rely purely on Sigint's research.
Thought you guys already knew, though.
Knew what?
That he's dead. He's been dead for 2 years now.
So, he was never there in the first place. He just couldn't let go of the boss.
You okay, Snake?
Yeah, I'm fine. It looks like it's not time for me to die yet.
I sure hope not.
Snake then calls Eva, who knows of a good hiding spot where they can meet up. It is a cave behind a waterfall. Once there, the two unwind. Eva once again tries to seduce Snake, standing before him wearing only a black bikini. Snake is more focused on the snake he is eating, some of which he offers to Eva, who turns it down. She reveals she never had to rough it in the field the way Snake has. She's always known a life of luxury.
A regular Matahari.
The least you could do is call me Cynthia.
Matahari was the name of Margaret MacLeod, a Netherlander stripper and prostitute who later served the Germans as a spy in World War I. Cynthia was the code name for American spy Amy Elizabeth Thorpe, who also used seduction as her means of espionage in World War II. She's often compared to Matahari. Why Eva would prefer to be compared to Cynthia over Matahari is unclear, or perhaps this is just Kojima once more flexing his military knowledge.
Can't even eat a snake during a mission, huh?
I wouldn't mind eating you.
Eva moves in closer to Snake. They discuss sushi. Then Snake notices a moth hovering before them. Snake tries to grab it, but his depth perception has yet to adjust to monocular vision. Eva coddles him, kissing him.
I'll be your eyes from now on.
Snake pushes her away. He doesn't want her pity.
It's not like I can't see. I've got one good eye and can still fire a gun.
Really? Good.
For once, Eva seems to be able to read the room and recalibrate her strategy. She sees that what matters most to Snake is being seen as strong and capable. A wounded warrior is still a warrior. If Snake has not yet removed the transmitter by now, Eva will assist him.
You know, I've been trained to do this kind of thing myself.
Just relax and let me handle it.
Okay.
I can't believe how smart it is.
Yeah, but it gets the job done.
The next morning, Eva supplies Snake with C3 and instructs him to install it on the 4 liquid fuel tanks in the hangar. Eva will go to a rail bridge and plant the rest of the C3 there. Snake warns Eva that Ocelot is onto her.
And watch out for Ocelot. He suspects you're not who you say you are.
Don't worry. The Colonel still trusts me. And I have my ways. There's not a man alive who can resist my charms. Besides you, of course.
In his own way, Snake is warming up to this strange booby woman. He compliments Eva on her confidence with her motorcycle.
You seem like you were born on one of those.
It's only when I'm on the bike that I'm free to be the real me. I only get off my bike when I fall in love or fall dead.
She ends this bonding moment by snapping a photo of him with her micro camera hidden in the button of her blouse. Eva and Snake split up to achieve their own ends of the mission. You are listening to Metal Girl Solid, one woman's journey through a series she knows nothing about. I am your host, Courtney Colson, and this is episode 12. This block runs from hours 6 to 6:30. It begins with Snake on the precipice of the sewers above the river, and ends with Snake entering Groznygrad Weapons Lab. It is my goal to find a cave behind a waterfall one day. I've been chasing waterfalls for years with this goal in mind. Actually, yesterday I went out to Hovia Falls, John Forest National Park here in Western Australia, and I mean, it's such a dry land and very flat land, so we have very few waterfalls. So the one I saw was on quite a gradual slope rather than a steep slope or a steep cut-off point where you think of Niagara Falls and those sorts of ones. But I did find there's a tiny little cave area underneath it. Your human could maybe crawl under there. Maybe if you pushed all the air out of your lungs, I don't know. But this one, it was kind of freaky because the entire bottom side of this cave was just wall-to-wall nest of a hornet's nest. So there's all these little mounds that had once been occupied by some kind of insect, so it was kind of creepy. I gotta tell you about this. I was recently watching a Russian cosplay stage production of Snake Eater. Their cosplay contests are obviously way better than what we do in Australia or even America. Normally the cosplay contest, when you get on stage, it's just these dorky kids and they're, lip syncing along to some anime, and you can barely hear what the hell's going on, and it's all terrible. But no, this one was really good. Now, it was obviously an abbreviated comedic version, but they had Snake encounter the Sorrow immediately after Snake was shot in the eye. And that makes so much more sense. I never thought of it before, but it would efficiently streamline the story, and I think you'd cut out about an hour of unnecessary stuff. It also served to tie the Sorrow and Snake together more through that shared injury. The Sorrow lost his left eye, and Snake lost his right, so they're kind of the mirror opposite of each other. And it would leave the player wondering if Snake will share the Sorrow's same fate. You know, they've both been shot through the eye. That was the end of the Sorrow. Will it be the end of Snake? I never thought a Russian musical version of Snake Eater would be something I would ever see in my life, but here we are. The wonders of the internet. This is what the internet should be for. It's bringing joy into our lives like that. Not sorrow. We want joy. Could Snake have survived that considerable drop from the sewer outlet? It looks very high, though we don't know the exact distance, so we're just gonna have to guess. It's real frickin' high. But I was doing some digging about fall damage, and it seems the best answers often come from Reddit these days. What a world. And I quote here, while the world record for high jumping is 192 feet, 58 meters, and the Golden Gate Bridge, which very few have survived jumping from, is 220 feet, 67 meters above the water. Is that the absolute limit? Well, I wouldn't say that sewer outlet is as high as the Golden Gate Bridge. So okay, I guess we can say, yeah, it's possible. You could have survived that. Let's do some more digging. Reddit probably isn't the best place to end our research, although it's not a bad place to begin. From the New Scientist, Sung-Won Jung at Cornell University in New York and his colleagues studied the forces experienced when slamming into water by dropping 3D printed models representing different body postures into a tank. One represented a person diving headfirst with their hands by their sides. One, a person with their hands above their head and their palms touching. And another was just a leg with a foot representing jumping in feet first. I don't know why they didn't use a full body, but okay. Each model was equipped with a force sensor and was filmed with a high-speed camera when dropped. So apparently it's not just Mythbusters who do the high-speed camera thing. It's a science thing. To determine unsafe heights for diving, the researchers compared the forces they recorded to those known to cause physical damage to people. They found that those force levels were met for head-first divers above 8 meters, hand-first divers above 12 meters, and foot-first divers above 15 meters. Okay, that's a lot lower than the Reddit estimates there, and definitely a lot lower than the highest diving record. So by their research, hand-first divers were at risk of injury above 12 meters. However, the high diving record, as I said, is 192 feet or 58 meters, so that's, less than a third? So can we infer from this that one can counteract those dangerous forces through all the acrobatics that is involved with high diving? You know, if someone just drops straight into the water like a stone, that they're gonna hit full force, and they're gonna experience all that force. Whereas, Snake kind of did a bit of a high dive. I mean, he had this pose, he braced himself quite intentionally, he didn't just fall. It wasn't like a high dive thing, but maybe I could say, I would give it a pass. I would say it's okay. But continuing on here. Jung says that, and it is Jung, I had to look it up because it's Korean, so it's not Jung as in the German. It's German? Yes, German. Jung says that most of the, I do so much research, guys. I make sure everything, pronunciation, everything, I get everything right. Jung says that most of the force affecting the body while diving is due to the displacement of water. It is like pushing your fingers very quickly into a jar of honey. The liquid forcefully resists, he says. And the New Scientist article does mention professional high divers, as I was wondering about. People have successfully dived from much higher heights than the limits found in the study. For example, Lasso Köhler, actually I didn't look up how that name's pronounced, but I'm assuming it is Lasso Köhler, broke the record for the highest feet-first dive in 2015, when he jumped from 58.8 meters above the water. Jung says that to execute such extreme jumps without injury, divers must flex the right muscles to make their bodies stiffer and tighter. Interesting, because they often say people have miraculously survived great heights because they were unconscious or they were inebriated. I actually, true story, happened to a friend of mine. But yeah, apparently this woman was so drunk and she fell off the balcony and she went down 2 stories and landed on the lawn. She just got up, brushed herself off, kept going. She was fine because she was just so drunk. She didn't stiffen up and tense herself. Most injury in a car accident as well, we tend to tense up. If we remain completely relaxed, we wouldn't break bones so easily. But here they're saying to do a safe high dive, you do need to stiffen up. So you're more like a javelin penetrating the water there. Snake launches himself backwards in a T-pose and he lands headfirst, so no wonder he sees the afterlife. Ocelot is relieved to see that Snake survived. Snake is conscious with his head above the water as he's carried downstream. Then Ocelot inspects his revolver. We are shown that there was a bullet in the very next slot in the chamber. Snake narrowly escaped being shot. Was this by luck or by intention? Ocelot gives an amused chuckle to himself as if he is just as surprised as we are. He really was playing Russian roulette. And this has served him well thus far, playing the role of an arrogant show-off. If Volgan or anyone else reprimands Ocelot in his performance and repeatedly letting Snake get away, he has the perfect cover. I was playing Russian roulette. It's not my fault he survived. Blame it on chance. Meanwhile, Snake is carried off into another world, and this is the most overt example of entering the spirit realm, non-ordinary reality, if I may use that sort of neo-shamanic term. The dead are not silent is one of my favourite lines in the game. And a game that, I'm sort of aware of where the game goes from here, and it is all about legacy and the past, and that past is never dead. It always comes back to haunt these characters. Basically, I'm only up to MGSV, and I've seen the past continues to haunt these characters. The dead do not remain silent. And later that will be quite literal in that the AI ghosts in the shell of the boss and Strangelove will come back to haunt the living. The Sorrow is voiced by David Thomas, who is also the voice of Khrushchev. He is also the voice of Gren in Cowboy Bebop, who you might remember as the soldier who was forced onto HRT, hormone replacement therapy, estrogen, in other words. Who was perhaps one of the more fascinating characters in a series full of fascinating characters. Man, that was the perfect show. I want to go watch that now. Every decade or so, I will go back and watch Cowboy Bebop. Mark my words, I will do it again. The Sorrow's appearance is based on actor Ed Harris, which I can quite clearly see, but it is even more obvious in the remaster in Delta. They very much tried to emulate Ed Harris's appearance, to the point that I wonder, is that something that they could get sued over? Is Ed Harris giving consent to his likeness rights here? The Sorrow will sporadically unleash some kind of ghost thing at you, as I said. But can you avoid it? Because I'd had no idea. I just kept walking through it. I couldn't do anything. And I can't think of any other boss fights like this. It's not so much a boss fight, it's a moral guilt trip. It is a battle of the conscience. And I like this unconventional approach because how many games revolve around violence? I'm playing the original Tomb Raider at 1 and 2 recently. And, ostensibly this is a puzzle game, but they've thrown in enemies. There's very piss-poor combat because it's, mid-90s. And they were just trying to hold this thing together with bubblegum and rubber bands. But why did that game have to revolve around violence? And then the later iterations of the Tomb Raider series brings in more and more combat. And they don't really improve the combat. But it's a puzzle game. And they put in the violence. And there are so many other games where you didn't really need any sort of combat mechanic, and yet it's in there anyway. There are a minority of games, although it's still a large number of them, that don't revolve around violence. Games aren't just about fighting. You know, Animal Crossing, and if you're not a psychopath, Sims. But yeah, primarily games, if you go, prior to video games, is about defeating your opponent. Whether that be sports or chess, it is sort of reenacting war in a non-fatal, violent way. But video games, so the genre, the shooters and what have you that are specifically focused on fighting, why then is that always the only option? I like when there are games that have a lot of... It's a role-play game, you have the choice. So you say your Baldur's Gates or Cyberpunk 2077 or something. It is a choose-your-own-adventure kind of thing. And so I like those kind of games that do provide you with the option to show mercy and to even befriend a character that might otherwise just be an enemy. And I find that simply more sophisticated. It's more engaging. I get frustrated so many times in certain games where the choice is essentially taken out of your hands. Like, you have to kill this character. You cannot move on. This character must die, but I don't want to. You have to. But I don't want to. I'm sorry. And Snake Eater isn't exactly a game that gives you choice. Really, at least in the Metal Gear games I've played, choice is not... Well, it's not even really a factor. You're kind of playing through a movie. It's not really until you have the option to either kill or spare quiet. That's the only significant choice you get in any of these games that I've played. But here, with the Sorrow, you sort of have choice, or more specifically, you have the consequence of your choices. And that's why I love this. That is not so much a direct combat, boss battle fight, where it is just, I've got to get your health and your stamina down and I win. It's, well, you either win or lose based on what you've been doing this entire game up until now. I think that's brilliant. That is so original and clever. From the wiki, if the player killed a soldier while the soldier was reading a magazine, their ghost will reappear reading the same magazine while fighting the Sorrow. So what, they're just reading the same magazine for eternity, or how does that work? And is this a canonical confirmation of an afterlife? And if so, I haven't gotten far enough into these games, but do we get any other non-ordinary stuff like this later on? Are there going to be ghosts? Is there an afterlife? I saw a meme once, I don't know if it's referring to any sort of canon. It's probably not. But, Revolver Ocelot would get to the other side, and he would be playing all the religions against each other, so he'd be in all the heavens, all the afterlives. Your defeat in this fight is inevitable, and you must take the revive pill to continue. And my question is, how does one administer a revive pill if one is dead? For real. We wake up in Tikogorny, which means Tranquil Mountain. And it is pretty tranquil around there, I gotta say. Snake and Eva cozy up to each other by the fire when the butterfly or moth appears before them. Snake goes to reach for it, but with his newly lost depth perception, he misses. This will be a recurring motif through the games. For the limited animation, they do a great job of conveying Snake's sudden horror at the realization of what he's lost. The following morning, they are gearing up to get back to the mission. Eva provides Snake with some cutting-edge C3. Eva talks about how the motorcycle is a grounding force for her. It's only when I'm on the bike that I'm free to be the real me. I think the same could be said about Ocelot's cowboy motifs. That is his truth. These are their totems, much like in Inception, something to remind them and bring them back to reality. Snake heads back to the lab, and I didn't mention that you get the Sorrow camo and corpse paint, and I freaking love that look. Recently found fabric that looked just like that. I bought some. I think I'm just gonna make a little pencil case or something, because it was very expensive. I didn't get it shipped from England. But yeah, it's so freaking cool. It's camo with skulls on it. It's so sick. Also, I do want to do the corpse paint when I cosplay as Snake again. Hell yeah. Water seems to be a recurring theme of passage for Snake. The boss tosses Snake off the bridge and tells him to drift away. Now Snake has fallen down into another river, and he's pulled downstream further along in his journey. Is there any more water later on? I don't know, we'll see. Unrelated to this episode, but I only just learned of this now, and I think you guys really need to know about this. So you remember the Brazilian wandering spider, the venom of which was utilized by the fear? Yeah. It is known to cause priapism, which are painful and prolonged erections. So, how about that? Snake could have died with a stiffy. What a way to go. Simulacra and simulation. For simulacra, once again it's Eva. I could have chosen her hidden button camera, but no. My question this time, is Eva accurate? Are all female spies whores? Is this the only way women can keep up in a man's world? On her back? Thankfully not, and I would point you once more to the former CIA agent Amaryllis Fox, but while there is no denying that throughout most of history the most valuable asset of a woman was what lay between her legs, thankfully we are well past that, and there are many women in the armed forces and intelligence agencies who utilize their strength and brains to serve their country. Eva, while not being an unprecedented phenomenon in real-world history, she is here largely to serve as part of a male fantasy. But I will not say that this game is misogynistic, not at all. Maybe MGSV is. We'll get to that when we get to it. But, as a woman, I love Snake Eater. I love the paramedic. I worship the boss. These are women who are either relatable or aspirational. They have a rich life and history and personality, and they exist outside of the male protagonist. They definitely pass the quote-unquote Bechdel test, if you've not heard of that. Basically a test of female representation in the media. Eva is goofy, and she's not even particularly good at seduction, as I've stated in previous episodes, but she is a multifaceted character, and I'm told that will continue to develop later in the game, so I reserve judgment. And I'm not one of those people who wants the media to become entirely sexless. We all like looking at sexy things, so I think Eva is perfectly justified in this James Bond-esque adventure. But this scene in particular, behind the waterfall, is one of the most intimate, and in this context, that sexuality allows their humanity and vulnerability to shine through. We see that Snake doesn't want to be coddled. This is not a position he's accustomed to. Comfort to him appears not to come from being made to feel infantilized or emasculated. In short, Eva represents something that never existed, but in a way it feels like it could, and she is based on real female spies, but the details are a little twisted. And for simulation, this is an episode filled with a lot of impossible things, so it was hard to pick a candidate. But the C3 plastic explosive is depicted in an accurate way. It is malleable, usually a yellow or cream colour, and is stable enough that Eva and Snake can just carry it around in their pockets like that. And that's because it needs a specific charge to ignite. According to the Dockery Armory, the ignition point for C3 is around 280 degrees Celsius, or 538 degrees Fahrenheit. So there's no way you're accidentally setting it off. You really should handle it with gloves though. Eve and Snake are handling it with their bare hands, but it leaves a yellow stain that is difficult to remove, although as far as I can tell it is lower in toxicity than C1 or C2. These are all part of the Composition C family of explosives. There is a composition A and B, which seem to be used for less malleable bombs and mines. Composition C was initially developed by the British in World War II. It wouldn't get the composition name until the Americans got a hold of it. It is primarily composed of RDX, which stands for Research Department Explosive. Really creative. But it is otherwise known as hexagen. C1 and C2 had numerous issues, toxicity and limited malleable temperature range. C3 was developed in the early 1950s, with C4 developed in the late 1950s. This explains why EVA has C3 and not C4. It may not have even been on the market yet. It was difficult to find information specifically regarding C3, as C4 quickly replaced it. I can't even tell if it is still manufactured anymore, I presume not. But, as an aside, this is not exactly relevant, but I feel I need to share this. As I was researching the topic of plastic explosives, I was once again reminded of how the internet is broken. It's been entirely destroyed by AI. I mean, I'm looking up something about a niche topic like plastic explosives. I'm being shown results that include thumbnails for clearly AI-generated videos. The picture is of a sexy AI woman in uniform, and the title says something like plastic explosives or chemical composition of C4 or something like that. Lucky for you, I go to the effort of actually reading books as part of my research. Books are the last bastion of truth nowadays. The Piggyback Game Guide. For endless grief, the sorrow. Spirit medium soldier. The sorrow is, or rather was, a member of the Cobra unit. During the war, he exposed countless undercover enemy agents that had infiltrated the Allied ranks. He has always been an eerie soldier, an unnerving individual with apparently supernatural psychic powers. It is said that he has the ability to communicate with the world of ghosts, and can conjure up the spirits of the dead, that he can hear their voices, feel their pain. The Sorrow may enter a battle without weapons, but don't dare underestimate him. He is still a deadly foe. The Sorrow is a rather unusual opponent who does not have life or stamina bars. You cannot defeat him in a traditional exchange of bullets and blows. The encounter always ends with what appears to be Snake's death, which can be very perplexing, until you realize that the option to select continue on the Snake is dead screen is a clever trick. When Snake dies, open the item window with L2 and use a revival pill. You can actually skip this entire encounter by drowning Snake in the river, but to do so means that you forego the reward available to those who survive this fight until the bitter end. Walk forward through the river and don't attempt to swim. If Snake dives, a ghost will grab his legs. Which is interesting. I've never seen anyone do that one. And we're going to try it in Delta. But then I have to skip the Sorrow. I don't want to do that. The Sorrow summons phantoms of all the individuals that Snake has killed during the course of the game. If you've been incapacitating every enemy in a non-lethal manner, this will be a veritable stroll, with only the 4 Cobras, the Pain, the Fear, the End, and the Fury, making an appearance. The Sorrow will occasionally fire some form of projectile at Snake, an ectoplasm beam perhaps, but this can be easily dodged by moving aside. Oh, I didn't know I could do that. Direct hits will knock Snake to the ground and drain a small amount of his life energy. The spirits of the dead will try to touch Snake, reducing his life meter on contact. Evade the ghosts to the best of your ability, but lash out with a physical blow when they get too close. One hit will make a phantom dissolve for a moment, enabling you to escape from its clutches. The same applies when the Sorrow draws near with a tactile intent. Okay, I didn't know that. I think I just walked through, like, what is happening? What is going on? What is happening? What do I do? When, or to be more precise, if you reach the Sorrow's skeleton, there is no way to prevent Snake's sudden death. Resurrect him using the revival pill. Your reward for reaching this point is the Spirit Uniform, which can be found in your camouflage menu when you retrieve your backpack. Yeah, I never got to his skeleton. I didn't even know it was there. Next is a Beatles reference. After his sojourn into the realm of the dead, Snake is back in the USSR, and boy does he know how lucky he is. This place is called Tikogoni Tranquil Mountain, not based on any real location. You will encounter the Ocelot unit here if you have not removed the tracker. Now, you would think, me being a total rookie on my first playthrough, that I wouldn't know how to remove the tracker, but I seem to have done so, as I have never actually seen the Eva tracker extraction scene in the game. I only saw a video of it later. I guess I'm just very concerned about the physical well-being of Snake, so I was always healing him. Eva will return Snake's backpack during their rendezvous at the crackling bonfire. His inventory will be intact with the exception of certain foodstuffs. Perhaps by way of compensation, being the prime suspect in the theft of his comestibles, Eva presents Snake with a key and the C3. Comestible. I've never even heard that word before in my life, have you? See, this is why you should read books. Even a game guide, you can learn new words. When you go back through the waterfall in Tikogorny, you will find the kabuki face paint in the pool below. If you manage to capture a live tsuchinoko snake earlier in the game, you can find another specimen here. I don't think I've ever actually caught one, and I didn't know that there was more than one. The tsuchinoko is a pretty lame mythical creature if you ask me. It's just a fat snake. What a lazy design. According to legend, some tsuchinoko have the ability to speak and a propensity for lying, and they are also said to have a taste for alcohol. Legend records that it will sometimes swallow its own tail so that it can roll like a wheel, similar to the hoop snake of American legend. Some prefectures across Japan offer a reward if you are able to find one and prove its existence. To quote the Mainichi newspaper in 2023, a 1.31 million yen, approximately 10,000 USD, reward will be offered for the capture of a tsuchinoko, a legendary snake-like creature that has remained elusive in spite of numerous reported sightings at a village festival in central Japan. And from the Metal Gear Wiki, in Metal Gear Solid 3 Snake Eater, the tsuchinoko is a rare snake that remains undetectable by the motion detector and thermal goggles. It can be captured by placing mouse traps around the area, or it can be killed using weaponry. When shot, the tsuchinoko emits a squeaking noise reminiscent of a rat. Regarded as delicious, consuming it fully replenishes Snake's stamina. If the player contacts paramedic after capturing it, she, along with the others, will congratulate Snake, who remains entirely clueless about the significance. Subsequently, Major Zero will sternly order him not to eat the tsuchinoko under any circumstances, much to Snake's disappointment. Although, according to Eva's medical record in the survival viewer, it is noted that she has eaten a tsuchinoko herself, served alongside shark fin soup. If the player completes Metal Gear Solid 3 with the tsuchinoko still in their inventory, they will receive the rank tsuchinoko and be granted the Infinity Face Paint. This face paint provides Snake with infinite ammo when worn. The Infinity Face Paint is the one with the kanji running down Snake's face. Weirdly, there isn't an English page for this in the Metal Gear Wiki, but there is one in Espanol, so translating that, it says, is represented as a bunch of Japanese characters in which it is written, in disorder. It's supposed to say, the power in your soul gives the infinity of the world and of the material. So, I don't know, like, this is translating Japanese to Spanish to English, so your mileage may vary, but that's the best I got. In the Metal Gear Solid HD collection, capturing a tsuchinoko awards players with a trophy or achievement called Believe It or Not, referencing, of course, the investigations of the Bazaar conducted by Ripley's Believe It or Not. And the tsuchinoko, I was surprised to learn that the Japanese seem to take it fairly seriously, maybe just as seriously or more so than Bigfoot. It's actually not that surprising. I used to be quite dismissive of these people who really believed in these cryptids, but the more I do research into these sorts of things, the more you learn, the more enlightened you become, of course. But in Australia, we have the Tasmanian tiger, which the last one we know of died in captivity in, I think, the 1930s. Ever since then, people have claimed to see more in the wild, and you go, surely we would know if it was alive or not. Everyone's got a phone with a camera in their pocket these days, but no. When you really think about just how huge, for example, Tasmania, the landscape of Tasmania is mostly unsettled and very dense bushland. Or you look at Japan, and I've been to Japan, and yeah, these forests can go on for kilometers, and it can be very dense, and these animals aren't just going to walk right up to us. Most animals will do everything in their power to avoid contact with human beings. So the idea that there are many fantastic beasts hidden out there in the world, oh hell yeah, I believe it. Maybe it's not the Loch Ness Monster or Bigfoot because they're such large creatures. The likelihood of them being able to thrive in those environments in such isolation, no, it doesn't seem particularly likely. But actually we know for a fact, we are discovering more and more species all the time, especially in the ocean. And once again, I know I'm going on my little ramble about how amazing planet Earth is, but yeah, the real world and all that. Earth is just a real freaking amazing place. You ever think about that, guys? I'm not high, I'm just thinking. Yeah, we find new species all the time, and we've been here for quite a while, and we've had scientific documentation for a couple of centuries now. But you might think you get stuck in your boring routine. You think, oh, is this all life is? No, there is adventure and there is mystery and there is excitement out of there, and that's why I love doing podcasts like this, or just going out and going on adventures, going on hikes, traveling the world. Because there's just so much out there. There's so much to learn. And so, yeah, if this podcast can inspire people to have that same curiosity, my job here is done. The Japanese Novelization. Pages 330 to 360. 344. Snake loses his eye. Ocelot didn't seem interested in the woman's, Eva's, reaction. He immediately began juggling 2 pistols. This wasn't even torture. It was an execution that would ensure the woman's death. Tatiana passed right next to Snake, struggling to keep up her balance in her heels. Snake hangs from the ceiling by his hands, bloodied, exhausted from the torture, and no more than a piece of meat hanging in a butcher's shop. Snake looked at the gun Ocelot was juggling. The boss told him to be loyal. He still didn't understand what that meant. He hadn't yet gotten over his betrayal or the murder of his past. But all the same, he had come here. An incomprehensible passion filled his chest, anger, fear, or sadness. Having been unable to find any particular emotion of his own even after fighting the Cobra unit, his troubled feelings erupted from his throat in the form of a groan. Snake braced himself on his feet, barely able to reach Ocelot, and slammed into him with all his might. It was clear Ocelot, who was about to fire the gun, lost his balance. His right hand, still holding the revolver, pointed towards Snake. The muzzle was in front of Snake's right eye. Immediately afterwards, a flash of the muzzle burned his vision away. The impact was so great that it felt as if the entire right side of his head had been blown off, and he screamed. He shook his head and blood spurted from the wound, splashing everywhere. His right eye felt nothing but burning pain. Aside from the almost gleeful, gory descriptions there, does this confirm that Ocelot's intention was to kill Tatiana? Is this canon? 345. The boss took the revolver from Ocelot, who was unable to recover from what he had done. She slapped him hard. Did this work out the way you wanted it to? These people who lived by violence looked at Snake with some combination of fear, jealousy, anger, or respect. The colonel then gave orders to Tatiana, who was huddled in the corner of the room crying. I need a change of scenery. Come to my room. The boss didn't do anything more to Ocelot either. Unashamed, Ocelot approached Snake. He struck Snake's bloodied wound with his fist, deliberately making it resonate. So, is he putting the tracker back in him, or it's not really clear in the book. Ocelot said with simple admiration, You endured the colonel's torture. He applauds while observing Snake's body as it hangs. And it's not sarcasm, it's a genuine expression of affection. I only understood it when I saw someone endure it. It's not so bad. It's the ultimate expression. So there's 2 lines there where a more direct translation perhaps illuminates a little more about the original intent. Because the way the boss says, there, happy now, or the way Ocelot says, watching this has made me realize something. It's really not that bad. Those translations, while still correct, maybe they're not as precise, they're a little more vague. 350, and I quote, Volgan recalls a conversation he had with the Sorrow, a former political rival of his in the Soviet Union. At the time, he would show films in his room to unwind. Since the building was completed, Grozny, right? He no longer had time for hobbies. Now, it's a shame that the conversation really isn't detailed between Volgan and the Sorrow. Instead, it is more of a summary, and the translation, I can't quite get the best understanding because, well, it often says he, but then doesn't give you the context of he Volgan, he the Sorrow. But I think this is referring to the Sorrow, so I'll just quote this. He, the Sorrow, describes Russians as easygoing, friendly, and sometimes obsessive. He loved them, and to protect them, he said we need the Soviet Union's robust system. When Einstein, one of the people responsible for the atomic bomb, was asked what kind of war World War III would be, he replied, I don't know what World War III will be like, but World War IV, people will probably throw stones at each other. But our country must survive that war and win World War IV as well, even if it was a war where people throw stones. Page 352. We get a private moment between Volgan and Rykov. It's mostly just Volgan musing about the state of the war and his plans to expand the Soviet Union, while he lies with Rykov, drinking together. Volgan presses his fingers against the bruise on Rykov's smooth cheek where Snake had punched him. Rykov's face contorted in pain. 357. Snake is stripped of everything. Freedom, strength, equipment, confidence. He is left naked. There is nothing left for Naked Snake to do. I love that one. And finally, 358. Snake finds the eye patch hidden in his abdominal bandages. At that moment, he noticed something catching on his bandages. Something had been placed on his stomach, which was convulsed from severe burns. He picked it out and found it to be a black eye patch. Someone was concerned about Snake's eyes. In the middle of enemy territory, he felt a sense of humanity. Snake put the patch on his right eye, where, upon first contact, a dull, stinging pain ran through the right side of his head. But then he felt relief. His remaining left eye naturally began to heat up at the small kindness he had received on the battlefield. His will to live rises. He examines the wounds he sustained from torture and the treatment the Soviet soldiers had apparently given him. Luckily, no part of his body is immobile. He's just in unbearable pain and discomfort. Alright, that about covers it. Over and out.